For thousands of years, the teachings of the Buddha and the enduring wisdom of Zen masters have offered humanity a roadmap to inner peace. These teachings don't just preach, they breathe life into timeless lessons through stories. Stories that speak to the heart, stories that still the restless mind. Tonight, as we journey together, let's allow these tales to guide us toward mindfulness and clarity. Take a moment to quiet your thoughts. Let the chaos of the day fade into the background. Breathe deeply and fully. This is your time to reflect, to unwind, and to discover the stillness within. Now, let's begin with the first tale, The Empty Boat. The Empty Boat. Picture a man who found his peace in the gentle embrace of a quiet river. Every evening, he would set out in his small boat, paddling softly as the golden light of the setting sun danced across the rippling water. This wasn't just a pastime for him, it was a ritual, a way to connect with the simplicity and beauty of life. On this particular evening, the world felt especially serene. The river was calm, and the sky burned with the fading brilliance of the sun. As he drifted along, he was immersed in the solitude, feeling one with the rhythm of nature. But then, in the distance, he noticed another boat. It was small, like his, but it seemed to be heading straight toward him. At first, he wasn't concerned. He called out gently, "Hey, watch where you're going." The boat continued on its course, unchanging. He called out again, louder this time, "You need to move. We're about to collide." As the boat drew closer, his serenity gave way to frustration. Why wasn't the person steering this boat responding? Could they not hear him? His voice rose in anger. "Move aside. Are you blind?" And then it happened. The two boats collided with a soft thud. His temper flared as he prepared to shout, but as he looked into the other vessel, he froze. The boat was empty. No one was steering it. It was simply drifting with the current, oblivious to his presence. In that moment, something shifted inside him. His anger, so potent just moments ago, vanished like mist under the morning sun. He felt a deep sense of foolishness, even humor, at the absurdity of his reaction. There was no one to blame, no one to be angry at. The boat was empty all along. This realization left him sitting in silence, the river now a mirror reflecting his thoughts. He began to understand that the boat wasn't the source of his frustration, his own assumptions and emotions were. The lesson. The story of the empty boat offers us a profound metaphor for life. So often, we let our egos take the helm, interpreting situations in ways that spark anger, frustration, or sadness. We see harm where there's none intended. We react without seeing the full picture. But what if we saw the empty boats in our own lives for what they truly are? The traffic jam that ruins our morning isn't conspiring against us. The rude comment from a stranger isn't about us. Life's challenges, more often than not, are like that drifting boat, moving without intent, not aimed at us at all. When we release our attachment to these emotions and stop taking things personally, we open the door to true peace. This is the wisdom of non-attachment. It doesn't mean we stop caring. It means we stop clinging. It's about finding strength in letting go. So the next time life feels like it's colliding with you, ask yourself, could it just be an empty boat? The monk and the tiger. Deep within a dense forest, nestled against the side of a misty mountain, stood a serene monastery. It was a place of tranquility, where the rhythmic chanting of monks harmonized with the whispers of the trees. Among the monks who resided there was one particularly wise and contemplative soul. His days were filled with meditation, his mind a canvas for the teachings of the Buddha, and his heart attuned to the melodies of nature. Each morning, this monk would wander into the forest, finding solace in the rustle of leaves and the cool breeze caressing his face. He moved slowly, savoring each step, the world around him a living tapestry of life and lessons. This was his sanctuary, a place where he felt utterly connected to the present. But one fateful day, as he followed a narrow mountain trail, a thunderous sound shattered the serenity. A tiger's roar ripped through the air, primal and terrifying. He froze, every muscle in his body tensed. Turning toward the sound, his eyes locked onto a massive tiger crashing through the underbrush. Its fiery gaze was fixed on him, its muscles coiled with deadly intent. Instinct took over. He ran. The monk sprinted down the path, his robes flowing like wings behind him. The tiger's roars grew louder, closer, its powerful strides closing the distance with alarming speed. Then, just as hope seemed to vanish, he saw it, a vine dangling down the face of a steep cliff. Without a second thought, he grabbed the vine and began to climb. His fingers clutched the lifeline with desperation, the cliffside scraping against his bare feet as he descended. But as he glanced down, his heart sank further. Below him, another tiger prowled at the base of the cliff, its eyes gleaming with hunger. He was trapped, suspended between two merciless predators, one above, one below. The world seemed to close in around him, and for a moment, despair threatened to consume him. Then something unexpected caught his eye. Growing out of the rocky cliffside, a single wild strawberry plant swayed gently in the breeze. Its tiny green leaves cradled a solitary red strawberry, ripe and perfect. For a moment, the monk forgot the tigers. He reached out, his hand trembling not with fear but with wonder. Carefully, he plucked the strawberry. He brought it to his lips and took a bite. The flavor exploded on his tongue, sweet, vibrant, utterly alive. Time seemed to stand still. The fear, the hopelessness, the roaring tigers, all faded into the background. In that moment, there was only the strawberry. Its sweetness filled him with a profound peace, a reminder of life's fleeting beauty even amid chaos. Hanging there between danger and uncertainty, the monk smiled. He had no control over the tigers, but he could still savor this moment. The strawberry's taste was a gift, a perfect fragment of joy that transcended fear. The lesson, the story of the monk and the tiger, is a powerful reminder of the importance of mindfulness. Life often places us in situations that feel impossible, like being caught between two tigers. Fear can paralyze us. Uncertainty can consume us. But even in these moments, there is beauty to be found, a small, shining treasure like the monk's strawberry. This story challenges us to focus on the present, to let go of the past that we can't change and the future that hasn't yet arrived. When we surrender to the moment, even amidst life's chaos, we discover peace. The monk's decision to savor the strawberry wasn't a denial of the danger around him. It was an act of acceptance, a choice to embrace life as it was, not as he wished it to be. And in that act, he found joy. So, the next time you face your own tigers, remember this. Look for the strawberry. It's always there, waiting for you to taste its sweetness. The story of two arrows. The forest clearing was serene, bathed in dappled sunlight as the Buddha sat surrounded by his disciples. The gentle sway of the trees and the soft melody of birdsong created an atmosphere of peace. Yet, even in this haven, the weight of life's struggles lingered in the hearts of his followers. One of them, his face marked by worry, stepped forward. Bowing deeply, he spoke. "Master, why do we suffer so much in this life? Pain seems to follow us like a shadow. How can we find peace amidst so much turmoil?" The Buddha looked at the disciple with deep compassion, his gaze steady yet warm. He recognized the question, not just as one from this disciple, but as a universal cry from all who sought understanding. "Let me explain," the Buddha began, his voice gentle yet carrying the weight of truth. "Imagine a person struck by an arrow. This arrow brings pain, sharp and unavoidable. This is the first arrow." The disciples nodded, understanding that the first arrow symbolized the inevitable pains of life, illness, loss, hardship. But the Buddha continued, "Imagine that after being struck by this first arrow, the person is struck again, this time by a second arrow. Yet this second arrow does not come from outside. It is crafted by the mind. It is anger, fear, frustration, and sorrow born of the first arrow's pain. This is the second arrow." The clearing grew silent, the weight of the teaching sinking in. The Buddha paused before delivering the heart of his message. While the first arrow is unavoidable, the second arrow is optional. The disciples' expressions shifted, curiosity and revelation flickering across their faces. The first arrow represents the inevitable challenges of life. The Buddha explained the things we cannot escape: sickness, loss, or injury. But the second arrow, the suffering born from how we react to that pain, is something we create ourselves. It does not come from the world. It comes from within. He continued, his words like ripples in a still pond. When we are struck by the first arrow, we often let anger or fear deepen the wound. We resist the pain, we replay the hurt, we let it fester. This is the second arrow, and it is entirely within our power to prevent it from striking. One disciple, his voice tinged with both hope and doubt, asked, "Master, how do we stop the second arrow? How do we avoid the suffering we bring upon ourselves?" The Buddha's smile was serene. "Through mindfulness," he said, "by observing our thoughts and emotions without clinging to them. When pain arises, we acknowledge it as part of life. We accept it, but we do not need to resist it or let it define us. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. When we respond to pain with awareness instead of reaction, the second arrow loses its power." The disciple bowed deeply, his heart lighter with newfound understanding. He realized that while the first arrow, life's pains, was beyond his control, the second arrow was his to master. By choosing mindfulness and acceptance, he could meet pain without compounding it, discovering peace even in the face of life's challenges. The lesson. The two arrows story offers a profound insight into the human experience. The first arrow, symbolizing the unavoidable pain of life, reminds us that hardship, loss, and discomfort are intrinsic to existence. These are the trials we cannot escape. But the second arrow, the suffering we create through our reactions, is a choice. Fear, resentment, anger, and anxiety are responses born not from the situation itself, but from our resistance to it. The Buddhist teaching invites us to differentiate between pain and suffering. By practicing mindfulness, we can observe our thoughts and emotions without becoming entangled in them. Pain is a signal of life, a natural part of the journey. Suffering, however, is optional. It is the story we tell ourselves about that pain. The next time life strikes you with an arrow, remember this teaching. You may not avoid the first wound, but you have the power to stop the second. Through awareness and acceptance, you can step out of the cycle of suffering and find peace, even amid life's inevitable storms. The parable of the mustard seed. Long ago, in a quiet village, there lived a kind and devoted woman named Kisagami. Her life revolved around her family, and her greatest joy was her beloved son. But one day, tragedy struck. Her son fell ill and passed away. Overwhelmed by grief, Kisa could not accept his death. Clutching her child's lifeless body, she wandered from house to house, pleading for help. "Please," she begged, "my son is dead. Is there anyone who can bring him back to life?" But every door she knocked on brought the same answer. No one could help. Rejection after rejection deepened her sorrow, but she refused to give up hope. One day, Kisa met a wise elder who took pity on her and suggested, "Go to the Buddha. Perhaps he can offer you solace." Desperate yet hopeful, Kisa found the Buddha sitting under a great banyan tree, surrounded by his disciples. She knelt before him, placed her child's body at his feet, and implored, "Master, please bring my son back to life. I cannot bear this pain." The Buddha gazed at her with deep compassion and said, "Kisa, I can help you. But first, you must do something for me." "Anything, Master," she replied, her voice trembling with hope. "Bring me a mustard seed," he said. "But the seed must come from a household that has never experienced death. Find such a home, and I will bring your child back to life." With renewed determination, Kisa set out on her quest. She knocked on the first door and explained her request. The kind woman who answered looked at her with sorrowful eyes and said, "I am sorry, but my husband died last year." Undeterred, Kisa moved to the next house. There, she was told, "I wish I could help, but my mother passed away long ago." Door after door, house after house, Kisa heard the same replies. At every home, she encountered stories of loss: a father, a sister, a child. By the end of the day, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Kisa returned to the Buddha empty-handed, but with a newfound understanding. Kneeling before him, she said, "Master, I could not find a single home untouched by death. Now I see that death is not unique to me. It is a part of life for everyone." The Buddha nodded, his voice gentle yet firm. "Kisa, you have learned a great truth. Death is inevitable, and suffering comes to all who are attached to the things of this world. By accepting the impermanence of life, you can find peace. Your grief, though immense, is not yours alone. It is shared by all living beings." With those words, Kisa's heart began to heal. She buried her son with dignity, not in despair, but with acceptance. She realized that while grief is natural, clinging to what is impermanent only deepens suffering. Her journey had not brought her child back, but it had given her a profound peace. The lesson. The parable of the mustard seed offers a timeless lesson about life and death. Kisa's story reflects the universal truth that death is an inescapable part of existence, touching every family, every individual. Her initial refusal to accept this truth mirrors our own struggles with loss, attachment, and impermanence. The Buddha's wisdom lies in helping Kisa see that her grief, while deeply personal, is also a shared experience. In seeking the mustard seed, she discovered that no one is exempt from loss. This realization brought her acceptance and the ability to let go of her suffering. The story reminds us that while grief is natural, it is our attachment to the impermanent that amplifies our pain. By embracing life's impermanence, we free ourselves from unnecessary suffering and find peace in the cycles of existence. Let Kisa's journey inspire us to face loss with wisdom, compassion, and understanding, knowing that we are never alone in our grief. Through acceptance, we can transform our sorrow into a deeper appreciation for the fleeting beauty of life. The farmer and the horse. Once, in a peaceful village, there lived a humble farmer who was known for his steady work and calm outlook on life. His farm was simple, and his most valuable possession was a single horse, which helped him with all the hard tasks, plowing fields and carrying heavy loads. Though he didn't have much, the farmer was content. One morning, the farmer discovered his horse was gone. It had escaped during the night. When his neighbors heard the news, they rushed to console him. "What terrible luck!" they exclaimed. "How will you manage without your horse? This is such a misfortune." The farmer, however, remained calm. He shrugged and said, "Maybe." The neighbors were puzzled. How could he be so indifferent to such a clear loss? Shaking their heads, they returned to their homes. A few days later, the horse returned, and it wasn't alone. It had brought back a group of wild horses from the mountains. Now the farmer had not just one horse, but several. When the neighbors heard, they hurried back, this time full of excitement. "What wonderful luck!" they cried. "Now you have so many horses. This is amazing fortune." The farmer smiled gently and said, "Maybe." His neighbors were confused again. Surely this was a cause for celebration. But the farmer remained as calm as ever. Soon after, the farmer's son decided to tame one of the wild horses. While riding it, he was thrown off and broke his leg badly. Unable to walk, the boy could no longer help with the farm work. Hearing of the accident, the neighbors returned, their voices heavy with sympathy. "What bad luck," they lamented. "Your son is injured and can't help you. How unfortunate." Once again, the farmer replied with his signature calm, "Maybe." The neighbors were baffled. How could he remain so composed in the face of such misfortune? Weeks later, the country was thrown into chaos. A war had broken out, and soldiers came to the village to draft all the young men into the army. Many sons were taken away to fight, leaving their families behind. But because the farmer's son had a broken leg, he was spared from the draft and remained at home. Once more, the neighbors came to the farmer. "What incredible luck," they said. "Because of your son's injury, he was spared from the war. How fortunate you are." As always, the farmer simply replied, "Maybe." The lesson. The story of the farmer and the horse carries a profound lesson about life's unpredictability and how we perceive events. What seems like a disaster today might lead to a blessing tomorrow, and what appears to be good fortune could bring unexpected challenges. The farmer's wisdom lies in his detachment from the outcomes of life's twists and turns. He neither celebrates nor despairs because he understands a simple truth. Life is constantly changing, and the true nature of any event can only be revealed over time. This parable invites us to approach life with acceptance and non-attachment. Instead of rushing to label events as good or as bad, we can cultivate a balanced perspective, recognizing that we don't always know the full story. By staying grounded and open to life's changes, we can find peace and resilience regardless of what comes our way. The farmer's attitude reminds us that the future is uncertain and only time will reveal the true impact of any situation. His calm response, "Maybe," is a gentle reminder to embrace life's ups and downs with patience, grace, and an open heart. The Buddha and the Angry Man. One day, as the Buddha taught his disciples in a tranquil forest, a man approached him, his face blazing with anger. The man had heard of the Buddha's growing influence and felt threatened by it. Driven by jealousy and resentment, he decided to confront the Buddha in front of his followers and hurl insults at him. "You're nothing but a fraud," the man shouted, his voice cutting through the serene atmosphere. "Who do you think you are? You pretend to be wise, but you're deceiving everyone." The Buddha, seated calmly beneath a Bodhi tree, did not react. His expression remained serene, his body still as the man's words filled the air. Frustrated by the Buddha's lack of response, the man's anger intensified. He leaned closer, his voice rising. "How can you sit there, acting so superior? Do you think you're better than me? I have no respect for someone like you." But still, the Buddha stayed silent. His peaceful demeanor only confused the man further. After several minutes of shouting, the man grew weary. His chest heaved as he caught his breath, his fury waning. Exasperated, he demanded, "Why won't you say anything? Don't you care what I think of you?" Finally, the Buddha spoke, his voice calm and steady. "Tell me," he said, "if someone offers you a gift and you refuse to accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The man paused, his anger briefly replaced by puzzlement. "If I don't accept it," he replied, "the gift remains with the giver." The Buddha nodded gently. "Exactly. And in the same way, if you offer me your anger and I do not accept it, then who does the anger belong to?" The man stared at the Buddha, his rage dissolving into realization. He understood. His anger had not touched the Buddha. Instead, it lingered with him, burning only himself. The Buddha continued, his tone compassionate. "If I refuse to accept your insults and anger, they remain with you. You are the one burdened by them, not me. I choose peace, not anger." The man was silent, his thoughts churning. He realized how consumed he had been by his own rage, only to find it powerless against the Buddha's serenity. Humbled, the man lowered his head. "Master," he said softly, "I see now that my anger has only brought me pain. How can I learn to be at peace as you are?" The Buddha smiled warmly. "Anger is like a hot coal. You pick it up, intending to throw it at someone, but in the process, you burn yourself. Let go of the coal. Let go of your anger. Practice mindfulness, compassion, and understanding. Through these, you will find peace." The man bowed deeply, thanking the Buddha. From that day on, he sought to follow the Buddha's teachings, letting go of his anger and striving for inner peace. The lesson. This story offers a profound lesson on anger and our power to respond to it. The Buddha's metaphor of the gift reminds us that negativity, whether in the form of anger, insults, or hatred, only affects us if we choose to accept it. By refusing to engage with another's anger, we protect our own peace and allow that anger to remain with the one who created it. The Buddha's calm response shows the value of non-reactivity and the strength of choosing compassion over confrontation. Anger is ultimately a choice. Like the hot coal, it harms the one who holds it far more than the intended target. By letting go of anger and practicing understanding, we free ourselves from its burden and cultivate a life of greater serenity and compassion. This story reminds us that we hold the power to choose peace, no matter the circumstances. The monk in the teacup. In a peaceful Zen monastery nestled in the mountains, there lived a revered monk known for his wisdom, calm demeanor, and his deep connection to the present moment. His students admired him for how he remained untouched by the chaos around him, always centered in mindfulness. Each day, the monk would meditate, drink tea, and share his insights with his disciples. One afternoon, during their usual tea ceremony, the monk picked up a simple clay teacup and studied it thoughtfully. Its earthy color and perfectly rounded shape were striking in their simplicity. The students watched him with curiosity, wondering what lesson he might share. After a long moment of silence, the monk smiled and said, "This teacup is already broken." The students exchanged puzzled looks. The teacup appeared perfectly intact, no cracks, no chips. One of the younger students, eager to understand, spoke up. "Master, the teacup is not broken. It's perfectly fine. Why do you say it's already broken?" The monk, still smiling, gently placed the teacup on the table in front of him. "In my mind," he said softly, "this teacup is already broken. It may look whole now, but one day, perhaps tomorrow, perhaps years from now, it will break. This is inevitable. When I understand that it is already broken, I can fully appreciate it as it is, without clinging to it. I can enjoy drinking tea from it, knowing that its life is temporary." The students sat in silence, reflecting on the monk's words. They began to see that the lesson wasn't just about the teacup, it was about life itself. The monk continued, "Everything in life is like this teacup. All things, no matter how beautiful or precious, are impermanent. We cannot hold on to them forever. But when we understand this, we are free to enjoy life fully, without fear of losing what we have. We can appreciate each moment, each relationship, and each experience, knowing that it, too, will pass. And when it is gone, we will not suffer because we have already accepted its impermanence." An older student, thoughtful, asked, "Master, does this mean we should not love or care for things, knowing they will one day be gone?" The monk gently shook his head. "No," he said, "it means the opposite. When we accept the impermanence of all things, we can love them more deeply. We are not holding on out of fear of loss. We love and appreciate them for what they are in this moment. We understand that they are part of the natural flow of life. In this way, we can live with a peaceful heart, unburdened by attachment to things that are bound to change." The students sat quietly, contemplating the monk's wisdom. They realized that the teacup was a metaphor for their own lives, their relationships, and everything they held dear. By accepting that everything they cherished was already broken, they could live with greater freedom and inner peace. From that day forward, whenever the students sat down for tea, they would remember the monk's lesson. They would hold their teacups with mindfulness, appreciating each sip and each moment, knowing that life's beauty lies in its fleeting nature. And when things inevitably changed or were lost, they were prepared, hearts open to the ebb and flow of existence. The lesson. The story of the monk and the teacup offers a profound lesson about impermanence and non-attachment. The monk's declaration that the teacup is already broken reflects the truth that all things are temporary. By accepting this truth, we free ourselves from the pain of attachment and learn to live in the present moment. This story encourages us to appreciate life's moments, relationships, and possessions without clinging to them out of fear of loss. By embracing the impermanence of all things, we can love more deeply and live with greater peace, understanding that change is a natural part of life. The monk's teachings show that non-attachment does not mean detachment from love or experience. Instead, it allows us to engage fully with life, appreciating things for what they are in the present and letting them go when the time comes. Ultimately, the lesson invites us to cultivate a peaceful heart by accepting impermanence and cherishing the present with grace and mindfulness. The Buddha and the Robe. In ancient India, during the time when the Buddha traveled across villages and towns to spread his teachings, he attracted many followers. Some of them were so moved by his wisdom that they left their homes to become monks and disciples under his guidance. One day, while staying in a small village, a wealthy merchant heard about the Buddha's presence and decided to visit him. Deeply inspired by the Buddha's teachings, the merchant wished to offer him a gift as a token of his respect. He brought with him a beautifully woven, luxurious robe made from the finest silk, adorned with intricate patterns. The merchant approached the Buddha, bowed respectfully, and presented the robe with reverence. "Lord Buddha, I wish to offer you this robe as a sign of my gratitude for your teachings," he said. The Buddha looked at the robe and then at the merchant, smiling gently. He sensed the merchant's sincerity and desire to give, but he lived a life of simplicity and was not interested in material wealth or luxuries. His needs were few, and he taught his followers to embrace simplicity as well. "Thank you for your kind gesture," the Buddha said, "but I cannot accept this robe. It is far too extravagant for a simple monk like me. I am content with the robe I already wear." The merchant, surprised by the Buddha's response, persisted. "Lord Buddha, I offer this robe out of respect for you. Surely, you deserve the best that I can give." The Buddha, still smiling, replied, "If you truly wish to honor me, there is another way you can use this gift. Take this robe and offer it to someone who is truly in need, someone who lacks even the basic clothing to cover themselves. That would bring greater merit and joy." The merchant, now understanding the depth of the Buddha's compassion for those in need, nodded slowly. He realized that the true essence of giving was not about offering gifts to those who already had enough, but about providing for those in need. "Thank you, Lord Buddha," the merchant said. "I will do as you say." The merchant then found a poor man in the village who was shivering in the cold, wearing only rags. The merchant gave him the robe, and the man was overjoyed and deeply grateful. The next day, the merchant returned to the Buddha and shared what he had done. The Buddha nodded approvingly and said, "You have done well, my friend. True generosity is not in giving to those who expect or do not need it, but in helping those who are in real need. By sharing your wealth with those who are less fortunate, you have brought true joy and compassion into the world." The merchant bowed deeply, feeling a warmth in his heart that he had never known before. He realized that the Buddha's wisdom extended far beyond the simple act of receiving a gift. It was about understanding the true nature of giving, the importance of compassion, and the joy that comes from helping others. The lesson. The story of the Buddha and the robe teaches a timeless lesson about the true nature of generosity and compassion. It reminds us that the value of a gift lies not in its material worth, but in the intention behind it and the impact it has on those in need. The Buddha's refusal to accept the luxurious robe is a reminder that material things do not bring lasting happiness or fulfillment. Instead, the Buddha encouraged the merchant to find someone who truly needed the gift. In doing so, he taught that true generosity comes from a place of empathy and a desire to alleviate the suffering of others. This story encourages us to look beyond superficial acts of giving and seek opportunities to make a real difference in the lives of those who are struggling. Acts of kindness, when directed toward those who need them most, can bring greater joy and a sense of purpose. In the end, the Buddha and the robe reminds us that the essence of compassion lies in understanding the needs of others and responding to those needs with an open heart. By giving thoughtfully and selflessly, we can create a ripple effect of kindness that extends far beyond a single act, touching the lives of many. The Buddha tames the elephant Nagiri. During the time when the Buddha was residing in Rajagaha, a city in ancient India, his teachings were spreading far and wide, and more people were following his path of peace and enlightenment. Among those who were jealous of the Buddha's growing influence was Devdatta, his cousin and former disciple, who harbored resentment and desired power for himself. Devdatta sought to harm the Buddha in many ways. One of his most dangerous plots involved an elephant named Nagiri. Nagiri was known for his wild nature and great strength and was kept in the royal stables. Devdatta went to the elephant keepers and persuaded them to release Nagiri into the streets when the Buddha was passing by, hoping that the wild elephant would trample and kill him. The day came when the Buddha was walking through the city with his disciples, teaching and spreading his message of compassion. Devdutta's men released Nagiri, and the furious elephant charged through the streets, causing panic and terror among the people. The villagers ran in fear, and even the Buddha's disciples urged him to take shelter. But the Buddha remained calm, continuing to walk toward Nagiri with a serene and fearless demeanor. As Nagiri charged toward him, the Buddha stood still, emanating a powerful aura of loving kindness, metta, and compassion. He raised his hand in a gentle gesture of peace, focusing his mind on the deep compassion he felt for all beings, including the frightened and angry elephant. The Buddha's presence was filled with such calm and kindness that it had a profound effect on the raging animal. When Nagiri came close to the Buddha, he suddenly stopped. The fierce anger in the elephant's eyes faded, replaced by a sense of calm. The elephant bowed his head before the Buddha, who then gently stroked Nagiri's head, speaking softly to him with compassion. The wild elephant knelt at the Buddha's feet, completely tamed and peaceful. Witnessing this miraculous event, the people of Rajagaha were astonished. They marveled at the Buddha's ability to turn a violent elephant into a gentle creature through the power of love and compassion alone. Even Devdutta's followers were humbled by this act and began to question their loyalty to him. After the encounter, the Buddha explained to his disciples and the people that loving kindness is a powerful force that can transform even the most aggressive beings. He taught that when we cultivate compassion within ourselves, we can overcome anger and hatred, just as he did with Nagiri. The lesson: this story emphasizes the power of love and compassion in overcoming aggression and fear. The Buddha's ability to calm Nagiri shows that true strength lies in a peaceful heart capable of transforming even the most difficult situations. It teaches us that when faced with anger or violence, responding with compassion can create harmony and understanding, bringing peace not only to others, but also to ourselves. The story of the Buddha and Nagiri inspires us to face challenges calmly and with a loving mind, helping us cultivate patience and understanding, which can relax and soothe the mind. The parable of the raft. One day, the Buddha was teaching his disciples about the nature of his teachings, the Dharma, and the importance of using it wisely. To illustrate his point, he shared a simple yet profound parable. The Buddha began by describing a man who found himself standing on the shore of a river. The river was deep, wide, and filled with dangerous currents, while the other side was peaceful and free of danger. This man wanted to cross to the other side, but there was no bridge or boat in sight. So, he decided to gather logs, branches, and leaves, tying them together to make a raft. With his strength and effort, he paddled across the river, eventually reaching the safety of the opposite shore. Once on the other side, the man thought to himself, "This raft has served me well. It helped me cross the river and reach safety. Now, should I carry it on my back and continue my journey, or should I leave it behind?" The Buddha paused and asked his disciples, "What do you think, monks? Should the man carry the raft with him after he has crossed the river, or should he let it go?" The disciples replied, "He should leave the raft behind, Venerable Sir. It is no longer needed as it has served its purpose." The Buddha smiled and continued, "In the same way, monks, I have taught you the Dharma, which is like a raft. It is useful for crossing over the river of suffering and ignorance, but once you have crossed over, you should let go of the Dharma. Do not cling to it or become attached to it. The teachings are meant to be tools for liberation, not objects of attachment." He further explained, "Just as the man does not carry the raft with him once he has crossed the river, you too should not cling to my teachings rigidly. Use them to reach enlightenment and freedom from suffering, and then be willing to let go of even those teachings. Holding on to them after they have served their purpose can become a burden, just as carrying the raft would." The lesson: the parable of the raft teaches us that the teachings of the Buddha, or any spiritual guidance, are like a raft that helps us cross from the turbulent waters of suffering to the peaceful shores of enlightenment. They are tools, not ends in themselves. Once we have achieved inner peace and understanding, we must let go of rigid attachment to those teachings, remaining open and free. This story encourages us to practice flexibility, avoid dogmatism, and understand the true purpose of spiritual teachings. It reminds us that wisdom lies in knowing when to use something and when to let it go, helping us maintain a balanced and peaceful mind. Thank you for watching. The lesson from today's parable reminds us that the tools we use on our spiritual journey are just that, tools. Once they've helped us reach a place of peace and understanding, it's time to let go and move forward freely. If you found this story meaningful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more teachings and wisdom from the Buddha. May peace and compassion guide your path. See you in the next video.